Back in the book segment tonight, did you see that? We begin with a question. Should President Obama have invited the family of Kate Steinle to the State of the Union address last night?
He should have invited the family of the woman that was killed out in California by the illegal immigrant.
Kate Steinle, yep.
Miss Steinle. He should have invited her family to start with, and symbolized, tell the American people that this symbolized his devotion, his intent to deal with people that are here illegally, particularly violent criminals, and he's not dedicated to that at all.
You're now a Fox News anchor, Martha MacCallum. So how did the Congressman Marino get involved in all this?
He's been involved in this issue for a while, but he also is one of the people who's been a big supporter of Kate's Law. He felt very strongly that they should have invited Kate Steinle's family, but the Obama administration has never even reached out to Kate Steinle's family, as you know better than anyone.
Right.
So that was never going to be on the table in terms of guests last night. They invited guests, as most presidents do, I should point out, who served their agenda. They invited guests who were victims of gun violence. They left a seat empty for victims of gun violence.
But I think Kate Steinle might have been a victim of gun violence.
She absolutely was a victim of gun violence. But the problem is that the person who perpetrated the crime against her and killed her was an illegal alien.
Being harbored.
Cities are not on the list.
That's right, being harbored by a sanctuary city. So the reason that we're doing this with Miss Martha tonight is to point out the rank hypocrisy of inviting gun victims' families, which is good, by the way. I have no problem with that. Right. But the most high-profile woman killed by a gun in 2015 was Kate Steinle. And it should never have happened. And the Democratic Party will not get behind Kate's Law. And Congressman Marino should be applauded for what he did and making that comparison. And it's just, everybody should know the State of the Union. Everybody should know it, no matter what party you're in. Okay, so let's go to topic 2.
Yep.
Another nutty professor. This one is at the University of California, Merced.
Correct.
All right? And he's teaching his students this. Roll the tape.
Are from these white Caucasian men. And by the way, I'm not saying by better people, but that's what we should be thinking about. Usually they're people who are religiously motivated and politically conservative. And these are the type of people we always think of being like really against terrorism. That's right. In fact, 9/11 is basically the only act of foreign terrorism that's ever happened in the United States.
All right, so who is this guy and what is he teaching?
Dr. Ross Avila. It's an Intro to Psych course.
Intro to Psychology. Dr. Ross Avila.
Dr. Ross Avila. He said things that were absolutely inaccurate in that statement. He talked about the fact that he believed that it was all white, Caucasian, conservative, religious-minded men, essentially, who are committing acts of terror in this country. He negated to talk about Fort Hood or San Bernardino, which happened after this event.
Or
but
Boston.
Clearly, he's trying to convince them all that 9/11 was just an isolated incident. So what the world is telling you that there's an Islamic radical problem in this country that can lead to violence and is not really where he wants his students to be focused.
Okay.
He says the problem is something.
Does this guy have a radical past? Is he just a crazy guy?
No, he's been a teacher there for some time. There's no evidence that he has any sort of radical past, but I think that what he represents is a larger issue that we see at universities across this country. When you talk to General Jack Keane about communism and fascism and how scholars and students were taught during those movements what they were so that they understood them. There's nobody teaching about the tenets of Islamic radicalism in this country in order to train people to think about what the world faces right now.
Now, at Merced, the University of California, Merced, there was a stabbing incident involving a Muslim student. What happened there?
In fact, weeks after he made this statement, Faisal Mohammed, who was a young man who was a student there, stabbed 4 students on campus and was gunned down by the police in that incident.
Are you sure that it was Faisal Mohammed? Maybe he was just disguised and was a white Christian conservative.
Yeah, probably. They said it was because he was upset about being left out of a study group, but they later found an ISIS flag and a manifesto on how to behead.
But they were planted there by white Christian conservatives.
Yeah, most likely.
That's who did it.
Those guys
now, did this professor finally, 15 seconds, get in any trouble for this crazy stuff?
No. I mean, he corrected something he said which was patently false when he talked about a shoot-up that happened at a courthouse, which essentially never happened. And he said, I'm sorry that didn't happen, but I was just trying to draw attention to the larger problem of these
Introduction to Psychology, right?
Exactly.
I don't want to get into the psychology of the professor, but I don't know if I'm going to take that course. Thank you, Martha.